Ghana, a lower middle income economy with a population of about 27 million. More than half of its population live in urban areas which are mostly ill-planned, characterized by congestion, limited access to services and affordable quality housing, and institutions unable to cope with the rapid and unregulated expansion. The National Development Planning Commission, NDPC, has just launched a process for the preparation of a 40-year long-term national development plan. Ghana is not new to development planning. From the colonial period to now, the country has been through a number of development plans. Notable amongst them are President Kwame Nkrumah's 7-year development plan, President Rawlings's Vision 2020, President Kufuor's Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy, GPRS-1, Growth and Poverty Reduction Strategy, GPRS-2, President Mills's Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA-1, and President Mahama's Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA-2. While some achievements were made under these plans, they were never fully implemented. Some of the bottlenecks were political changes, leading to the abandonment of plans by successive governments, lack of sustainable financing, and the challenges of changing the structure of an economy within a medium-term time frame.
When we did the Constitution Review Commission hearings, Ghanaians overwhelmingly called for the development of a long-term national development plan as a way of bringing some sanity and continuity into national development to override all these things where new governments come in, they abandon projects and other. So there's that aspect of it also, the constitutional basis. The directive principles of state policy makes provision for that we should make multi-rolling plans and also broad national development plans and other. But there's also what we call the demographic imperative for long-term planning, where you look at the dynamics of population and therefore the need for you to plan. By the year 2057, we should hover around 50 million. 90% of the population will be living in urban areas. We need to begin to plan for all that.
There is a need for us to plan, since all these cannot be achieved by chance. It therefore requires the participation and commitment of the various stakeholders of the economy to ensure that the plan will be adhered to, devoid of politicization, and irrespective of which political party is in power at any point in time.
In contrast, countries that have succeeded in achieving real structural transformation in the post-war period have been those that have implemented long-term plans with some consistency, such as Malaysia and South Korea. Ghanaians have gradually embraced the idea of long-term planning. In 2011, during the review of the 1992 Constitution, it became apparent that once again, the country will need a long-term vision and plan if it was to accelerate its development.
It makes sense to have our cities planned, to have our infrastructure planned in anticipation of our population that will hit 50 million by 2057, instead of just waiting to see things happen.
The world is evolving in such a way that if you don't take a long-term view of your development, you'll be swamped. OECD has just come up with a 50-year growth strategy, which they call vision of growth. Stanford University, a few months ago, launched a 100-year research program into artificial intelligence. The Chinese are coming towards the end of a 100-year plan. Everyone is thinking into the future. If you don't do that and you stay in the medium term, short term, you simply be sidelined.
You are at point A, you want to get to point B. You have to look at where you are, you have to look at the resources you have to look at the environment, you have to look at the tools that you can get if you don't have yourself, get from outside, to help you get to where this nirvana of the day when I feel like I'm happy.
Add more value to raw materials so that when they are exported, we will get more income. For instance, timber, we shouldn't export the raw material just like that. We should add more values to it so that you get more income from that, and we'll be able to develop our country.
Consequently, the National Development Planning Commission is formulating a 40-year development plan to nurture the country's development. The idea of the 40-year plan is inspired by the directive principle of state policy in the 1992 Constitution, regional and global frameworks such as the AU's Agenda 2063, SDGs, and the recommendations of the Constitution Review Commission's report on the need for a long-term national development plan, and Act 815, Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which calls for the development of a long-term plan. The vision of the plan is, quote, a just, free and prosperous society, quote, with 5 pillars: economic development, social development, spatial or environmental development, governance, and the international context of Ghana's development. It will contain a section on planning in Ghana from the pre-independence era to date, drawing lessons from Ghana's planning history and examples from other countries. It will emphasize attitudinal change, infrastructure development, land reforms, human capital formation, public sector, that is national and subnational, modernization, and science, technology, and innovation as the main drivers of change. The implementation of the plan will be phased into 10 4-year medium-term plans starting 2018 and reviewed every 10 years by Parliament.
We want Ghana to be, by that year, right, to be not dependent on the export of cocoa and bauxite and manganese and gold and diamonds. We've done that for a long time. And we know the problems that come with this, okay? So we want Ghana to have found its competitive advantage, its niche in whichever aspect of manufacturing. We want Ghana to be value-added manufacturing exporting country. That's the vision. We want Ghana to be manufacturing vehicles. We want Ghana to have a steel and iron and steel industry. That's the foundation of modern industry. Okay. We don't want to be exporting bauxite, dust. We want to be processing this bauxite here into alumina and aluminium. I'm using that smelter to process our own alumina. I'm not exporting bauxite, importing alumina, using our electricity to produce aluminium, and exporting most of it.
Social development is a very critical way of measuring how a country is developing. And it covers a very wide range of areas. It's about education, access to education, the quality of education, the skills people are able to build, their capacities, and so on. It's about health, how to have a healthy population free from disease. It's about nutrition and food security. It is that no child should go hungry in Ghana in this present period. And it's something which happens. We are not out of that yet. It's about the quality of jobs we have. And this is a very critical part of social development, because if you have a good job, a job which earns a decent wage, or a job which is productive, highly productive, it allows you to deal with many other aspects of social development, like buy good health, buy food and security, and so on. It allows you in your old age to have a sense of security after all the hard work and contributions you've made to Ghana. So that's a very critical part. It's also about leisure, it's about cultural activities, it's about sports, it's about participating in the life of a nation. It's about energy needs and how they are supplied, whether people have clean energy and are not using wood lots all the time, because we know that people who cook on using wood fuel regularly, actually have upper respiratory diseases which affect them in their long term and sometimes cause their deaths. It's about physical security and it's about social security. So you can see that it's about more or less everything that we are concerned about, and that's why social development is very central.
A comprehensive long-term national development plan is absolutely essential for sound infrastructure delivery. Infrastructure, be it a railway line, a power plant, a thermal plant, once it's established, continues to influence industries and users for an extended period of time. These projects take a long time to plan, a further few years to construct, and can remain in use for a long time if it's adequately maintained. Therefore, the primary beneficiaries of infrastructure in this current generation may as well be the next generation. And this brings out an important attribution of infrastructure as intergenerational resource transfer, meaning that one generation uses it and is transferred to the next generation. Decisions on investments therefore require long-term perspectives. They must be taken with population growth in mind, increased prosperity, expansion of jobs, and increased disposable income.
Institutions and governance are an essential part of the planning, the long-term planning process, as well as the rollout and implementation of the entire plan. We need a certain type of institution to deliver the development that Ghanaians deserve. Institutions that are performing, institutions that are responsive, institutions that are transparent, institutions that can learn lessons and run with them, institutions that relate well to others, so that there is seamless delivery of development. And so as part of this process, we need to involve the institutions in determining the kind of Ghana that we want and their roles, what they're going to be able to do to give us the Ghana that we want. Because whatever we do, we are relying on them as vehicles of implementation. When Ghanaians set objectives for where they want to take Ghana to, it's these institutions that are going to translate them into reality. And therefore, the institutions must be performing. They are part of the process, but they are also part of the posture.
Before we even launched the process of preparing the long-term plan, we started what we call political mobilization exercise, which has actually turned out to be good. In addition to informing the current president that this is what we're doing, we informed the two former presidents also. We informed the leadership of parliament. We informed the judiciary. Then, in addition to the Council of State, we also visited the 6 leading political parties. They all agreed that, yes, we need a long-term national development plan.
We're going to every region, conducting forums, to hear from the people, to begin with, what they want to see in the plan. The plan isn't just a technical document. It casts a vision that must echo what people want.
Adia muyi yemidi yi pa se mo de sade wi eba na no bi wo honoma na se ombe ye be bo akuru no na se yemfa party sem enkonko ba mu dede a kamisusu se eye pa de kamuye se kebe koso na kan nya non partisan dia anka beboa na mum de kamisusu se entimi nya non partisan se bia ka government ni ba mo do hye bi be hye no amatuwa se djuma de ya wo so no anumu ana ese otimi hwa so no nsu di so
me pede abembi ba mo ba ya mahende ya mo from bi na ko school we wonye adwuma ye wo tantanti me pede ncha abane oba ogugugu ndwuma za mama ho mo from we school na wo tantan fie mo so aheden wenya adwuma ni bi na wa ye no wa mama ye sa ma me fui ye sa kwanya no ye si enye bi na ye.
Technical consultations will be held with the executive, judiciary, parliament, political parties, National House of Chiefs, professional bodies, research and academic institutions, the private sector, civil society organizations, including faith-based organizations, children and youth.
Ghana in the next 40 years should not be a place where we are talking about bringing in power badges from abroad to come and produce electricity for us. We should talk about Ghana where one of our sources of revenue is exporting electricity to the whole of West Africa.
National conferences will be held on the main drivers of the 40-year development plan: attitudinal change, infrastructure development, land reforms, human capital formation, public sector modernization, and science and technology. Drafting of the National Long-Term Plan will be done concurrently, taking into consideration inputs from the various consultations.
I want to see Ghana in the next 40 years where everybody, irrespective of the class you are, getting easy access to quality and affordable healthcare service.
Every child in Ghana, rich or poor, able-bodied or disabled, deserves good education. Any attempt at developing the country in the future must also be an attempt at transforming the knowledge and skill based on the youth. More priority should be given technical education.
The document will be validated technically by all the interest groups that were consulted prior to the start of the process and by the cross-sectoral planning groups organized around the main themes of the plan.
When you use the term 40, it sounds like too far into the future. The person who would be president of Ghana in 2057, in all likelihood, is already in a high school here in Ghana or possibly in university. The MPs, the chieftains of industry, they've all been born already. So we are not doing anything out of the ordinary. We are actually preparing literally for the future and also for ourselves.
40 years from now, all the people who are under 20 will still be 60 years or less, most of them anyway. We know how many of them there are. We know their distribution over the surface area of Ghana. We can find out, if we don't know, what skills they have. Planning is what gives you the occasion to say, if I really want to do this journey and arrive at my destination, I better examine all these things very, very, very carefully. What is interesting about a plan is not the numbers you end up with. For me, the most important thing is the exercise of thinking through, finding out how things correlate with each other.
It's about purpose and it's about discipline. It also allows you to understand the enormity of these problems and therefore what it will take, the discipline it will take, the sacrifices and what you need to be doing. And it's a good accountability tool. It allows the public, citizens of Ghana, to be able to look at this plan and look at the achievements year after year, 4 years after 4 years, and to say that, look, we are nowhere near this plan. And that's why it's really important.
A long-term plan for a nation casts a long-term vision of what we want to see the nation look like over a period, and sets out the roles that different institutions, organizations, departments must play, sets out the investments that we must make, the roles we must build in order to deliver this vision. It sets out the targets that we need to meet to achieve the realization of the vision. That's a long-term plan.
One country that is known to have developed following a long-term vision is South Korea.
We didn't have any industrial bases. So we borrowed the money from European countries and also the United States. And the government selected some good businessmen in proper area. The government started to support with this money. Business people, including the other Korean public, was very eager to be well off. So we also have the campaign to let's live well. I heard very often and very vividly that every home will have a car in 1980. So this is a kind of a slogan and also kind of a symbolization of the well-off.
According to the South Korean ambassador, if this vision is to succeed, the country will have to be strict on meritocracy.
We have a tradition to respect the government and also the scholars. In ancient days, we have a system to select the government officials through examination. The people respect government officials because they have very fair and open competition. Meritocracy is very, very important. Firstly, the recruitment system of civil servants should be improved or changed. And then also the important thing is the training and education of civil servants. You can raise the morale. You can educate civil servants to be far from the corruptions and or unfairness or some cronyism.
This too is part of the plan, changing attitudes. What the NDPC describes as the soft issues, but critical to propelling and upholding economic and social development. Once the vision is drafted and passed into law, it will be binding on all future governments, a 40-year framework with goals and objectives.
Whatever we do, whether it's agriculture or services or manufacturing, it must be efficient. It's all about productivity, and productivity comes from efficiency. That means everything. We must begin to respect time, for example. You see, those are the soft issues of development that too often we don't talk about. But the respect for time is critical. Respect for order is critical. Without those things and several others, you really aren't going to go very far.
Every government that comes to power for 4 years will make its own plan in the context of that, pushing the plan forward. So it allows political parties the freedoms of their ideologies, their priorities, and all sorts of things.
The NDPC is a constitutional body, okay, and you have a mandate, all right, and the law says you must develop a plan. I want to ensure that this plan benefits from such a large body of popular acceptance and civil society buy-in that no political party can jettison it without paying a high political price.